Hi everyone, I am Corion, your witch in residence on YouTube, and today I wanted to discuss a movie I saw today. I've seen it a few times before, but it really kind of hit me. This movie and the lesson that it was trying to teach. The movie is called Enemy Mine. Now, for those of you who haven't seen it, I'll give you the basic plot points. The idea is it's set in a future where humanity is fighting this alien species. The aliens and the humans are using fighter craft, and these two fighters crash land on the same planet, not too far away from each other, and they both kind of make moves to go try to kill the other one. When that doesn't succeed, they very slowly, over time, wind up becoming friends. And it turns out that the alien fighter pilot was actually pregnant. And after becoming very close friends and teaching each other their culture and language, the the pregnant one winds up dying in childbirth. And so this fighter pilot is alone on an alien world raising an alien child, trying to teach it the culture that it learned secondhand. But he does a very wonderful job and tries to teach this kid and try to make a decent life for the kid when suddenly he's rescued. And it turns out that the humans that he was fighting for have now oppressed this alien species. They've turned them into effectively what amounts for a slave race. He's brought home, given all kinds of accolades, but his, well, son is taken and made a mining slave until he breaks the child out and the two of them escape. And while watching this, it really made me think about some kind of important philosophical and spiritual concepts that I want to go over. Before I do, though, I would really appreciate it if you guys would give a like, and if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. It helps me out a great deal. It shows YouTube that positivity can win out over negativity, and I think that's a wonderful thing that we should all be pushing forward in general, that we want to see good, positive, happy, wonderful content. And that's what we should be doing. So, with that obligatory ritual out of the way, let's get down to it. The thing that I think is most important that this movie teaches is that even if somebody is an enemy, you can make them a friend by understanding. There's a really great saying that it's, if you learn to know somebody long enough, you can learn to love them. And if you had time enough, you could learn to love all that are good and just. Well, I personally hope I'm counted among those good and just, and I think my viewership on YouTube definitely is. So let's take the time to get to know each other. Let's take the time to appreciate that even though we may have different cultures, different beliefs, they all start from a place of trying to be nice to each other and kind whenever possible. Because at the end of the day, every philosophy, even atheism, starts with that concept of, look, let's just try to be nice to each other, even though sometimes people aren't going to be so nice. And I think that's an important lesson to take away, especially from this movie where we have two people that are bitter enemies, but they get to spend enough time with each other. And they learn that really the difficulties that they have are conceived of by people that are not actually fighting that war. They're not actually at odds with each other. In fact, they can be great allies, great friends, great, people together, just living their lives. And sure, they may have a different way of viewing what is nice, what isn't nice, what is kind, what isn't kind. We can learn those things and attempt to implement them for other people. A textbook example that I always love to point to about this when dealing with different cultures is, in my culture, a woman's home is her domain. She's in charge of it. The man definitely brings in, provides for her, and cares for her, but the house is hers. And there are very important rules about the responsibilities of guests and hosts. Um, for example, if you were to come to my house, one would expect that I would offer a drink, I would offer a place to sit. I would be attentive to your needs and listen to you. Conversely, as a guest, your responsibility, of course, is to, be nice and respectful of the host's environment of their home and to not bring disorder to it. So, an interesting situation happened where a few friends of my wife came over, and one of them happened to be an Orthodox Jew. Now, in the Orthodox customs, it is considered inappropriate for a man who is not married to a woman to speak directly to that woman. The idea being that they don't want to create a sense of jealousy, I guess is the best way to put it, between a couple. So you don't speak to another man's wife. That's their definition of how to be nice. My definition, though, would require that person to acknowledge my wife as the hostess involved. So as you can see, there's a conflict there. But once we sat down and discussed where these differences occurred and why they occurred, and both of us were just trying to be respectful and kind to the other, we realized that at the end of the day, we were both trying the same thing. We were both trying to be nice. We were both trying to be kind. We are both good people. We may have different ways of showing it, but if we take the time to sit down and learn those techniques, learn those ways, I think all of us can agree that that would be a much better, a much wonderful world to live in. So I'd like to propose an exercise for you guys. Whether you do this in my YouTube comment section or whether you do this in your real life, it's up to you guys. But what I would recommend is reach out to one person whose culture you don't have a firm grasp on and ask them about that. Ask them what are the best ways to be kind to someone in that culture. Anything that you can show them that I want to be your friend if we can figure out how to make that happen. And with any luck, we will create an environment where people want to learn about our culture as well and learn about what you do to be friends with people. So, let's create that. Let's create that little almost, enemy mine situation without all the violence and the need for desperate survival in a harsh environment. Let's create a friendly environment where we can all, where we arrive not necessarily understanding each other, but in the end of the day, have a potential to leave as brothers and sisters. Because at the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters. We may have different ways of expressing that. We may have different views on how to be nice to each other, but at the end of the day, we all make the attempt. So let's do that. Let's firmly make the attempt. Let's reach out to the other side of the aisle of the religious ideology, of the culture, of what have you, and just try to understand them and ask them, what can I do to make you feel welcome wherever I am? And see if they respond the same way. Now look, they might not. They might not be interested in doing that. But the fact that we are making the attempt, I think, says more about us as people than anything else we could ever do. Because at the end of the day, it's not necessarily whether you succeeded, although that is important, but it is that you made the attempt and learned from it. Okay? You don't always have to win. We can't always win. I mean, Picard even said, it is possible to commit no errors and still lose, right? That is life. And that is true. It is life, right? But we can still make the effort. It's still important to make the effort to reach out. Because at the end of the day, the people that want to divide us, the people that want us at each other's throats so that they can profit, do not want us to get together, to acknowledge each other, to learn from each other. There's even a textbook example of this. If any of you have studied World War I, then you've probably heard about the famous Christmas truce. This was when, just before Christmas Eve, everybody just stopped fighting. And after a little while, people made the brave move of standing up and reaching out across the trenches to the other side. And they wound up exchanging cigarettes and chocolate and playing even like little games of like soccer and whatnot together, because they realized, hey, we may have certain differences when it comes to country and ideology and whatnot, But at the end of the day, we all agree that this is a wonderful time of year, a time for friendship and kinship and brotherhood. And that's what they did. And it wasn't until both the Central Powers and the Entente ordered officers to start artillery barrages again did this let up. It would have continued. The soldiers realized that they weren't fighting a vicious, bloodthirsty enemy. They were fighting their brothers. And how could they go about killing that? And it wasn't until the higher ups that were inevitably profiting from this war that forced the fight to continue did the fight actually continue. So let's do this. Let's reach out to people. Let's just see if we can stop one conflict in the future from happening today. Because if we can just stop one, then we will have done our job, right? We will have potentially saved a life. We will have potentially saved a day. And my Sufi brothers, there's a famous line saying, a line in the Quran saying that if you saved one person's life, you've saved them all. And, although I'm not Sufi, I respect the heck out of their position on that. And I think that is a wonderful tradition. And at some point, I actually would love to have a wise Sufi elder sit down and discuss their faiths and the commonalities with mine and with others. Because I think it's important that we stop this, I want to call it an environment of fear where we're afraid of our neighbors, right? Because I think that if we sit down and we learn to get along and, we learn that, we can find things in common that we both enjoy, and then let's go enjoy those things together. At the end of the day, we create a world like the Christmas truce where we all get along for the most part. And if things can't be solved by words, we solve them in a reasonable manner, right? In rules that we all universally agree to, as opposed to one side dictating them. And I think that would be a world worth fighting for. I think that's a world worth arguing for together. And I would like to certainly be a part of that world. And I hope you would too. Even if there's somebody that you don't particularly agree with. Heck, I'll admit, I'm not a super big fan of the Amish. I think going without technology seems like something that I could never do. But I respect their commitment and their beliefs. And even though I don't necessarily agree with their practices, I respect the heck out of their rights to have them. And I respect the rights of them to say, you know what, we don't necessarily agree with other people's beliefs, but we're not going to police their actions. We're not going to force anyone to our worldview. And that's a heck of a stance to take. And it's one that I hope we all take in the future. All right, guys, that's my sermon for today. So think about what I've said, pause and consider it. Merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. Take care, everybody.